Hey everybody, my name's Mike Montgomery and welcome to episode 1 of Weekend Renovations, the new series on modern builds. Now to be honest, I'm not even sure if this is going to be possible, but in today's episode we are going to attempt renovating the first room in my new house, the ugly bathroom. We're going to be turning it from this into this on modern builds. Really quickly, before we get this project started, I'd like to give a big thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, Heart Tools. Throughout the video, you're going to see me renovating this space using Heart Tools, sold exclusively in-store and online at Walmart. If you're interested in learning more about Heart Tools or any of the products that I used in this video, make sure and follow the links down in the description. And without further ado, let's get this video started. I decided to get a little bit of a jump on this project and start on Friday evening. All right, step 1, let's tear this place apart. I'm gonna be updating this vanity, and the first thing that needs to go is this ugly countertop, but I wanna make sure and not do too much damage to the base because I am gonna be reusing it and giving it a fresh paint job. Once that was gone, I could take out the screws on the inside of the medicine cabinet that were holding it in place. Once they were gone, it was able to pull out straight from between those studs. And obviously, I'm gonna be replacing that ugly light fixture, but I kept it in place for now, just for filming. Super pro. Like on most vanities, I had one false drawer front that I decided to keep in place, but I did remove everything else. I really don't like this pattern that's routed on the front of these doors, but I think I've got a way of making them look very cool. This trim had been painted over a couple of times, so it took some with it while I removed it. I took all of the door casing as well as all of the baseboards off. I'm gonna be replacing them later on with some clean 1x2 trim. And with the dirty work complete, I called it a night, and the next morning I started by removing all of the hardware on my shower doors. Just like the vanity, I want to paint and update this instead of replacing it. My whole idea here is to do a weekend renovation on a budget, and I really love the idea of updating these outdated fixtures instead of just buying new hardware. These pieces were pretty easy to remove. They just had a few screws holding them in place. Then I grabbed a utility knife to break the silicone caulk line, and they fell right out. This bottom piece didn't have any screws though, just a bunch of adhesive. This is gonna need cleaned. Bad. Yeah, remember when I said I got done with all the dirty work the night before? Well, I wasn't expecting this. Either way, I grabbed a wide wood chisel and I used that to scrape away all of the adhesive and crud that was underneath that piece of hardware. This worked really well, but if you do the same, I want to stress not to put too much downward pressure, that way you don't damage your tub. Instead, you want to scrape away the material in a forward motion. Anytime I need to do some drywall repair, I like using this dry deck spackling because it goes on pink and dries white once it's ready to sand. I used it to fix any of the inconsistencies around the vanity, especially on these walls that are going to be exposed. On any larger voids, I use this mesh drywall repair tape to help span the gap and give the spackling something to cling onto. I always apply it a little bit proud of the wall, that way I can sand it back with a 120 grit sanding block and smooth everything out. Now I'm only showing this process once for the sake of the video, but it's common to repeat these steps 2 or 3 times until you're able to feather out all of your voids and inconsistencies and get a really clean finish. Like I mentioned before, this medicine cabinet was way too small to be useful in my opinion. Instead, I'm going to be doing a pegboard backsplash behind this vanity that I'm really excited about. So I just patched up this void with some 2x3s and scrap plywood. The first thing I wanted to try was filling in this routed inlay on the fronts of all of my cabinet doors and drawers. And since we're doing this on a budget, I decided to use the same spackling that we used on the drywall. Plus, it kind of worked out great because this stuff dries really quickly. First, I hit everything with 100 grit sandpaper on my Hart Random Orbit sander, then I moved to 150 grit in preparation for paint. This is one of my favorite tools that Hart makes. It's super balanced and does a really good job of not trying to wander or drift on you as you're using it. Outside, I did those same steps to my cabinet doors, but I want to go into it in a little bit more detail while we have time. Oh, and just like on the walls, I made sure to apply liberally. And before I could do anything to the drawer itself, I needed to glue the face back into place, and I used a little bit of wood glue and F-clamps to get that done. The first time I sanded these doors, I did two things wrong. First, I used 100 grit sandpaper where I should have used 150. It was just a little bit too aggressive. I also used too much downward pressure, and doing that allowed the sandpaper to remove a little bit of the spackle inside the grooves so that they weren't perfectly flat. No biggie though, I just reapplied and let that dry, and did my best to sand right the second time around. As you can see, I'm not trying to get a hard line of separation between the spackling and the cabinet door. Instead, if there's a little bit of a haze between the two, that means that you've got a good, consistent blend. Ultimately, I didn't do this perfect, but if I had to do it again, I think I would do better. And with everything prepped, I grabbed a few cans of Rolling Surf in Satin Finish by Krylon. This is gonna be my primary pop of color in the bathroom. I really love it. Now, I'm sure you guys know, but I'm gonna say it just in case you don't. It's much better to apply more thin coats than less thick coats. This helps get a good consistent finish and prevent runs or drips. And while I was in paint mode on Saturday, I took the time to mask off all of my shower doors and get my hardware prepped for paint as well. I'm gonna be painting these the same Rolling Surf color. Now, I'm sure a lot of y'all, along with myself, are curious as to how well this is gonna hold up. Shower doors have quite a few moving parts and they get used a lot. So in the future, I am gonna be doing an update video on this entire renovation. So make sure and click that subscribe button and the notification bell down in the description if you're not already. That way you can make sure and be updated when that video goes live. So I just got done masking the entire bathroom off, and I'm gonna spray paint the tub and the vanity simultaneously. I've got this middle divider so that the overspray doesn't get onto each other. But since we're trying to do this in a weekend, this is how we've gotta get it done. Spray painting in a confined space like this isn't exactly fun, but I made sure to use a respirator. That way I didn't inhale any of these fumes. I don't know about you, but whenever I apply paint by hand to wood, I always get brush marks or roller marks that I really don't like. And that's why I decided to use spray paint instead of doing it by hand. Also, it was the right color to match all of the other hardware in the room. Instead of replacing this outdated yellow tub and shower surround, I am going to be painting it white. This product is something that I've seen for a while, and I've been really curious to see how well it works. The kit comes with a heavy-duty cleaner and steel wool, which is what you see me using to clean everything with. After that, I used masking tape to cover up all of my fixtures. Then, I was ready to spray. So I really shook this can up, but I was not getting very much spread whenever I was spraying. Now, I didn't know if this was user error or just part of the product, so I just kept moving and I did my best to get the best coverage that I could. Okay, so I would say I did not have a good experience spraying on that tub refinishing kit. I ran out before I got to the tub, but it really doesn't look that even. I can see a couple parts where it did not go on as even as I wanted it to. It came in 2 cans. One of them sprayed great, but it just didn't have much spread. The second can kept clogging, and I really only got through half of it before I gave up. So long story short, the spray finish is a do not recommend. Now I'm gonna try the roll-on finish. Let's see how it works. I know that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting different results, but that is not what I'm doing here. The brush-on finish or the roll-on finish goes on way thicker than the spray finish does. And with that in mind, I have to imagine it's a lot more durable also. Once I started applying this to the tub and I saw how much better it looked compared to the spray finish, I decided to go over the entire surround and coat everything again. Now this may sound like weird timing, but while I'm doing this, I'd like to give one more huge thanks to the sponsor of today's episode, Heart Tools. Heart Tools is a new line of power tools sold exclusively at Walmart, in-store and online. Their 20-volt platform has all the power you need for regular DIY and home improvement projects, plus they've got a 40-volt line of lawn and garden tools available also. So if you're interested in learning more about Heart Tools, make sure and follow my links down in the description. And thanks again to Heart Tools for making this video possible. Now back to the build. Before applying actual paint, I rolled on a coat of Kiehl's Kitchen and Bath Primer. This stuff is made to go in moist environments. Of course, it does a great job of blocking stains, but this stuff is made specifically to help prevent mildew or mold. I do have a 65-year-old house, but since I'm in Southern California, mold and mildew isn't a huge issue for me. Either way though, I do think it's better to be safe than sorry. Once I had that primer coat rolled on, I grabbed a paintbrush and I cut in on all of my corners and around my shower insert really carefully. After I gave this primer coat about a half an hour to dry, I was able to apply 2 coats of Rust-Oleum Studio Color Paint and Primer in 1 in eggshell white. In a bathroom, eggshell is the way to go. The little bit of sheen allows for a little bit more moisture protection, plus it's easier to clean. And once I got done with that second coat, I called it a night for Saturday. Sunday morning, I woke up early, excited to get started on the countertops for the vanity. I'm gonna be building custom plywood and laminate counters that I think are gonna look great. Here, I'm using my Hart circular saw to break down some 3/4 inch Radiata pine plywood that I'm gonna glue together for an 1.5 inch thick countertop. I made sure to spread out my wood glue evenly so that I got a good bond. Then I used a bunch of 99-cent spring clamps to hold everything together while that glue dried. Over at Maker Ranch, I had some white laminate left over from that sausage body coffee table I built last month. I probably should have checked my leftovers before committing to use this because it actually had a little tear in it that went all the way through the panel. So I ended up having to splice a couple of pieces together instead of having one solid piece of laminate, which was the original plan. Either way though, there was no time to be upset, so I pressed on. If you've been watching Modern Builds videos for a while, then you know that I've been experimenting in applying laminate to plywood quite a bit. I did it on the school bus tiny house not long ago, and a couple of furniture projects recently. It's really easy to apply and gives a super durable professional finish right out the bat. All you have to do is apply a coat of rubber cement onto your substrate as well as onto the laminate, then let both of them dry completely. You want to make sure that these are completely dry to the touch and not tacky at all. Then I used some wooden dowels as risers to make sure I could line up my laminate before committing to pressing it down, because once you do, it creates an instant, permanent bond that should hold forever. After that, I drove back over to my place and I could trim the countertop to its final length. Now my walls weren't perfectly square, and that's why this offcut looks a little bit like a shim. I also took it in 3 passes, that way I was sure to get clean cuts. And now it's finally time to get rid of this ugly light fixture. No more using it for lighting on this project. I made sure to turn the bathroom breaker off at the panel, then I could remove all of the leads going to that fixture. This new light that I picked up is not only super affordable, but it is classic. I love these vintage style fixtures that use those big round bulbs. They put out a ton of light, and now that there's LED bulbs, they don't even take that much power. While I let that paint cure, I cut down another piece of that Radiata pine plywood to fit perfectly behind the vanity. This is gonna act as our backsplash. We're gonna be making a really cool pegboard wall, which I've wanted to try for a long time. After I knew that my piece fit, I marked a line right down the center of the board. Then I divided those 2 pieces in half and finally repeated that step one more time. So I had a total of 7 lines drawn vertically on my panel. I used a drywall square to do this, and my lines ended up being spaced out about 4.5 inches, but the cool part is this does not need to be standard. Just do whatever looks best for you and your space. The dowels for my pegboard are 1-inch closet rod dowels, so I used a 1-inch Forstner bit to drill out all of my holes. And as you can tell, I left a big void in the center of this panel, and that is where my round mirror is gonna go. I just figured, why drill holes if they were never gonna get seen, right? Before I slapped that panel onto the wall, I mounted my hardware for the light, and I made sure that everything was gonna line up square. Once I knew that it was, I could put it into place, and I was so surprised with how nicely it fit. It looked so good. Watch out! I fished those wire leads through the hole in the pegboard, and I was able to wire everything up really easily. I connected black to black and white to white and put a cap nut on both of them so that they were safe. Then I connected the ground wire onto the lighting mount just like the instructions recommended, and everything worked out great. At this point in the project, things were coming together and I was loving how it was looking. I continued by assembling the vanity just like I took it apart, but in reverse. As you can tell, there's still a little bit of that router pattern showing through. If I had more time, I would have spackled in between coats of paint, and I think that would have given me a perfectly flat finish.
I think it's so cute, but if you didn't have the pegboard, that would look like such a regular vanity, but now it looks very sectioned off, right? You have this, and then you have that.
Speaking of that, it was time to reassemble my shower hardware now that all of the paint had time to cure. Just like the original, I applied a thick bead of construction adhesive with a fast cure time. Then I could screw all of my other pieces into place, making sure to apply a silicone bead to seal all of my edges. Like I said earlier, I have no idea how durable this paint is gonna be, and I'll be sure to let you know if anything cracks or chips on me on Instagram. But right now, I love this color against all of the white in this background. After that, I could button up the last few things that needed done, including new switch and outlet covers, as well as new trim and molding around the door and baseboard. I made sure to use trim head screws, that way I didn't have as big of voids to fill, and with that, this bathroom was complete. But before we check out these afters, let's go to before. Now this bathroom was outdated. My house was built in 1958, and I really don't think that this bathroom had been touched since. Aside from the laminate, quote-unquote, parquet floors, which I actually like, I knew that I needed to replace everything in this bathroom. None of the fixtures matched, and everything was a ugly beige almond color, which I knew had to go. Now I know this was a ton of work to get done in a weekend, but I see TV shows and things like that use this as their gimmick all the time, so I wanted to give it a try for myself. Not to mention, the idea of a quick and affordable renovation really do go hand in hand. So, without further ado, let's check out these afters. All in all, I love the way this bathroom transformation came out, especially considering it took about 2.5 days. I've still got a little bit of trim and cleanup work to do, so make sure and follow me on Instagram. That way you can see this bathroom when it's 100% completed. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody. As you can tell, this video was a little more hectic than your standard renovation. The one big thing that I was unable to complete before the weekend was up is the plumbing. I'm not gonna pretend like I got the faucet and the drain attached. Everything is currently just sitting here so you know what it's eventually gonna look like. Either way, I am really happy with how the bathroom came out, especially for the price. If you're not already, make sure and click the subscribe button down below. That way you stay updated every time I post new project videos. If you wanna see my other bathroom renovation or home improvement videos, there will be a link down in the playlist. If you're interested in learning more about Heart Tools or any of the products that I used in this video, make sure and follow the links down in the description. And until next time, this has been Modern Builds. Bye, everybody.